Let him say about himself.
All right, good afternoon. So I'm going to continue the interreligious discussion that we were having here, and I'm going to bring us back to Asia. This time, though, to South Asia. And this paper that I'm presenting here today, this is a component of my dissertation research, where I'm looking at the interreligious appeal of Marian shrines and how they can promote communal and harmony and peace, primarily in South Asia. This particular is about Our Lady of Madhu in Sri Lanka. The reason, so I am not from Sri Lanka, I'm not from South Asia, but the reason why this is important to me is because both the peace building and the interreligious aspects and Mary is because for the 20 years before I started my PhD program, I was in the U.S. Army. And I started in Kosovo back in 2000, 2001. Then spent a couple years in Afghanistan, then Iraq, then back to Afghanistan. Then the last 10 years I spent in South Asia. So I was in Pakistan, Nepal, India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. And during that time, every single one of those places, Catholics were a minority, and interreligious relations were exceptionally important. Not just in the culture and for Catholics that lived there, but for me as a military officer trying to find peace and try and promote peace with what I was doing. So that's why I'm doing this research, and that kind of shapes my perspective on how I approach this. So in South Asia, again down here, this is Our Lady of Madhu. I'll talk about the shrines of Villanova and Mariamabad, Pakistan too. But Catholics comprise less than 2% of the population in South Asia. But Marian shrines are all across the subcontinent, and these three examples that I give here attract millions of devotees every year, mostly non-Catholics. So Villanova down here in South India, over 7 million pilgrims come to Villanova every year. 7 million. The majority are Hindu. Mariamabad, Pakistan, up there on the top, attracts over 1 million pilgrims every year. Again, the majority are Muslim. The importance of these interreligious gatherings is evident in the communal harmony that's developed amid the frequent ethnic, religious, and political conflict of the South Asian subcontinent. The shrine to Our Lady of Madhu, down in the northern part of Sri Lanka, is described as the holiest Catholic shrine in Sri Lanka and has for centuries attracted Buddhists, Sinhalese, Hindu Tamils, and both Sinhalese and Tamil Catholics. The statue is known for its protective power during times of war and other crises. During the Sri Lankan Civil War, which was from 1983 to 2009, the Madhu Shrine was designated as a neutral space in the conflict. Her appeal across ethnic and religious boundaries contributed to the image of Our Lady of Madhu becoming a peace symbol during the post-conflict period. Excuse me. So my paper, I argue that Mary's attraction to non-Christians and the deliberate efforts of the Madhu Shrine to promote peace can serve as a model for interreligious peace building throughout South Asia. I start briefly highlighting the relevant components of Catholic peace building, characteristics of the most notable shrines in the subcontinent, and then background of the Shrine of Madhu. And this allows me then to analyze the Madhu Shrine as a peace building center and how its lessons or its example can be followed in other parts of the region. So this research, as I mentioned, it's largely derived from observations or interviews from when I visited each of these shrines, as well as materials on interreligious dialogue, peace building, and South Asian Christianity or Catholicism, as well as political science, interreligious relations, historical studies of the Sri Lankan War and South Asian context, so that I can look at the interreligious peace-building efforts at the Madhu Shrine. So Catholic peace-building, or peace-building, is a vital component of Catholic social teaching. It's a comprehensive approach to reduce violence and its effects to build a sustainable peace focused on human dignity and the common good. The social reality and minority status of Catholics in South Asia can prevent the Church from becoming a principal actor in peace-building efforts, but the Church can join others to contribute through interfaith efforts for peace and justice. It must be contextually specific for the unique challenges of the region, accounting for the cultural and political situation. There are frequent displays of interfaith cooperation, especially involving Mary, despite the persistent political and ethnic conflict. Peace and justice are integral and inseparable components of Catholic social thought. Based primarily on Jesus' reminder, blessed are the peacemakers, the Church has emphasized the importance of building peace. For example, in Gaudium et Spes, the Second Vatican Council acknowledged the concrete demands of the common good are constantly changing. So, peace is never attained once and for all, but must ceaselessly be pursued. Peacebuilding encompasses a comprehensive approach to reduce violence and its effects to build a sustainable peace that's focused on human dignity and the common good. Three components are prevention, mitigation, and transformation of conflict by incorporating all stakeholders through a long-term commitment. Prevention includes addressing the root causes of violence and responding to unjust relationships and structures to build communal harmony. Mitigation of conflict relies on changing attitudes and addressing the effects and symptoms of conflict to protect and defend human dignity and the common good. Conflict transformation involves reconciliation and the restoration of sustainable structures to promote a peaceful and vibrant society. Peace is both an objective and a means through dialogue with as many stakeholders as possible, starting at the grassroots level and expanding outward globally. While this concept of Catholic peacebuilding is good, it's been applied mostly in places where the population is majority Christian. So what Catholic Relief Services has done and worked especially well in the Philippines and other places is establish or develop what they call the 3 B's, or 3 principles of binding, bonding, and bridging to promote interreligious peacebuilding. Binding activities create space for individual self-transformation and trauma healing. Bonding activities strengthen relationships and mutual understanding within respective identity groups. And then bridging activities develop trust between identity groups and foster dialogue to assist in the resolution of conflicts.
Individually, they're all very quiet, like church ones. But when you get a big...
Okay, so back to the Marian shrines in South Asia. Among the religious sites in South Asia, Marian shrines encourage the most interreligious gatherings by attracting non-Christians. I mentioned the numbers earlier. Many non-Christians that come to these shrines integrate Catholic narratives and practices connected to Mary into their own tradition and practice. The 2 largest interreligious pilgrimages in South Asia occur annually at the Marian shrines in Villanova, India, and Mariamabad, Pakistan. Millions of Christians, Hindus, Muslims converge on the shrine of Our Lady of Health in Villanova, where Mary appeared to 2 Hindu boys in Tamil Nadu in the late 16th century. And this is Our Lady of Villanova here on the left. The shrine to Our Lady of Health is regarded by most pilgrims as possessing great miraculous powers. Many devotees, whether Christian and non-Christian alike, consider Our Lady of Health to be of local origin because she appeared as a Tamil woman in their own village. In Pakistan's Punjab province, the National Marian Shrine in Mariamabad receives over 1 million pilgrims, most of whom are Muslim, during the Feast of the Nativity of Mary. Although there's no specific apparition attributed to this shrine, one unique aspect is that the statue of Mary next to the altar in the main church was carved by a Muslim craftsman in the late 19th century, relying only on his interpretation of Mary from the Quran. And that's the picture here on the right, which looks exactly like any statue of Mary in a Catholic church. Right? So even though this is his interpretation from the Quran, he was not given an image of Mary to do it. That was his understanding of Mary. There are numerous accounts of miracles attributed to veneration at both shrines. Then in the center here we have Our Lady of Madhu. The shrine to Our Lady of Madhu in Sri Lanka shares many of these same qualities. Hundreds of thousands of pilgrims from various ethnic and religious groups visit each year. Across South Asia, devotion to Mary occurs in homes, churches, grottos located in schools, and other places. The form of a healing mother is distinct and familiar to all religions, which is why the most beloved of representations of the divine in South Asia are often the mother and child. There's also evidence of how shared devotion contributes to community relations. Religious leaders at the shrines have observed how the interreligious devotion promotes unity within and among different groups. Events at the shrines are not limited to just Catholic or Marian feast days, but also reflect the Hindu, Muslim, or Buddhist holidays that are celebrated in the wider communities. There's one unique aspect of Madhu, however, that makes it stand out, and that's his place as a space of refuge and peace during the Sri Lankan Civil War. The shrine at Madhu is often described as the holiest Catholic shrine in Sri Lanka and a place of devotion for all. So the statue, which I showed on the previous slide, is believed to have been introduced by Franciscan missionaries in the 16th century. After being hidden in the jungle during a period of Dutch Protestant persecution in the mid-17th century, she was miraculously rediscovered and enshrined in Madhu. For centuries, the shrine has attracted Buddhist Sinhalese, Hindu Tamils, and Catholics from both the Sinhalese in the south and Tamils in the north. During the Sri Lankan Civil War, the shrine was designated as a neutral space in the conflict, but its status did not protect refugees. The statue of Our Lady was moved into rebel-held areas for safekeeping when government forces moved into this area of northern Sri Lanka. But her appeal has reached all Sri Lankans, regardless of religious affiliation or ethnicity, which contributed to the image of Our Lady of Madhu being transformed into a peace symbol during the post-conflict period. In this case, both sides of the conflict claim a connection to the Marian image and recognize her powerful intercessory attributes. The shrine has existed for over 400 years. The basilica that you see in this picture here was constructed in 1872 with the white and blue marble on the outside of it added during 1944 in the midst of World War II. As the shrine has grown, one thing that has remained consistent through periods of war, disaster, and other crises is its status as a symbol of hope and resilience, strength and unity for the Sri Lankan people. As we see from the quote from Bishop Rohan Silva, the shrine is a holy place, a center of peace and reconciliation, consolation, healing, and strength for everyone. The 3-decade civil war between the Sri Lankan government, predominantly Sinhalese, and the separatist Tamils in the north killed nearly 70,000 people. Amidst the carnage, the shrine to Our Lady of Madhu in the Tamil stronghold in the northern tip of Sri Lanka served as a place of refuge and hope for all Sri Lankans affected by the war. Pilgrims of all ethnicities and religions frequented the shrine throughout the war to pray for peace and reconciliation, as well as to seek the protection and consolation of our Blessed Mother. The shrine itself became a designated safe area for as many as 40,000 refugees who sought protection and refuge from Our Lady of Madhu during the war. Perceptions of the shrine as a center for interreligious peacebuilding have continued in the aftermath of the war. The Basilica Shrine of Our Lady, as a symbol of hope, resilience, and unity, has become a sacred center for peace and reconciliation, consolation, healing, and strength for everyone who makes the pilgrimage. Hindus and Buddhists, including religious leaders and monks, are attracted to the Madhu Shrine, and Mary as a Holy Mother, who showers blessings on all. Irrespective of racial and religious differences and her desire to keep the entire nation united and peaceful. In fact, the interreligious aspects have become systematized in some aspects. Leaders of many of the Buddhist monasteries have come to the OMI priests who run the shrine and asked them for instructions on how their monks should pray to Mary when they come. What are the proper offerings? When is the appropriate time to come? In fact, this picture here is one of the Buddhist monks from one of the local monasteries. He was part of a group that came in to pray while I was there. Likewise, the now former president of Sri Lanka, a Sinhalese Buddhist, recognizes the Madhu Church as a beacon of faith and unity that transcends ethnic and religious divides to foster unity, understanding, and harmony among all communities. Although interaction among pilgrims may be limited because of language difficulties and past suspicion, Our Lady of Madhu remains a bridge builder and peacemaker, as clearly demonstrated during the war. Given the cultural similarities and common religious plurality of these South Asian regions, I think that this can serve as a model for peace building or Marian peace building in other parts of the region. Although there are numerous differences between the island nation of Sri Lanka and the Himalayan regions of Nepal or the northern areas of Pakistan and India, there are several common cultural factors across the subcontinent. These things, such as religious plurality, shared dress, food, other contextual aspects, indicate that the peace-building attributes of Madhu may be appropriate as lessons for Marian shrines in other parts of the region. Although every war is different, to include the ongoing or recent conflicts in Sri Lanka, Kashmir, Nepal, and tribal areas of Pakistan or northern India, Marian shrines in these areas can still be promoted as places of refuge. Those displaced from the horrors of war should be offered a safe and neutral space to take shelter from the violence, not only in the protection of the motherly arms of Mary, but also from the Catholic Church itself. The Church does not need to be a majority presence to offer this. The challenges and limitations of the Madhu Shrine should also be recognized, though. While the shrine attracts many, the language differences between Tamils of the north and Sinhalese of the south may promote a superficial bonding. It's possible that the shared space is only a temporary phenomenon. Therefore, it's incumbent upon the clergy, religious, and other leaders at the shrine to encourage real interaction and peacemaking among the diverse groups. Pope Francis visited the Madhu Shrine in January of 2015. He recognized the interreligious peacebuilding capacity at the shrine, which he expresses there in the quote at the bottom of this slide. So it's clear from this quote that while the space has its own sacredness and power, it's our Blessed Mother that makes it this way. The Buddhist monks that come to the shrine seek a holy place and a holy and powerful mother. While the systemized coordination of instruction as the priests provide to the monks is not necessary or would even necessarily be appropriate, it shows the possibility of interreligious cooperation and peace building could be expanded at Marian shrines, both big and small, throughout the subcontinent. So my intent for this project was to determine if the shrine to Our Lady of Madhu in northern Sri Lanka could serve as a model, as a center of interreligious peace building for other parts of South Asia. So it's clear, I think, from the history and many observations of the shrine from Catholic, Hindu, Buddhist, Tamil, and Sinhalese Sri Lankans, that the shrine is recognized for its peace building and peacemaking capacity. Sister Theophany Cruz, a Holy Family sister from the northern part of Sri Lanka, describes Our Lady of Madhu as our peacemaker, a peace-building bridge to the north and the south, promoting good relationships among all religions. So returning back to those criteria, the peace-building criteria I gave at the beginning, prevention, mitigation, transformation, as well as the binding, bonding, and bridging. The Madhu Shrine accomplishes all of these and promotes much of it. On the other hand, there are some aspects that have to be deliberately pursued, such as how to bridge language gaps, address atrocities that occurred from both sides in other parts of the war. And some of these things are within the scope of what might be relevant to a shrine, others are not. But I conclude that Madhu could be a model for other parts of the region, although the context might be different, certainly lessons that could be applied for Catholic peace builders. So thank you very much for your time.
Questions? Good.
Joe, I love your papers. I also want to ask, as you do your research, have you thought of exploring the contextual, cultural reality of the feminine divine in these cultures that might be pulling these people from these religious traditions into this Mary, this figure? We might be thinking of, oh, Mary is a saint, I have Dulia in the Catholic tradition, but the people are seeing something else based on their cultural memories and ways of worship. Why I say that? In West Africa, for example, let me use Nigeria. He's not here right now. Among the river side, cross river of southern Nigeria, the feminine force is is a woman, the deity of the river. And so here is Mary, and then Mami Water and Mary, the Mother of God. There's an intertwined reality there playing itself out that people have not really caught attention to. But you think that, oh, the Catholics are praying to Mary. Yeah, they are praying to Mary, but the others are also coming because of the deity of the river, which is a feminine deity, Mami Water. Yeah, so I don't know, are you looking at that also?
Absolutely, and so that's a separate chapter in my dissertation,
Oh,
right? A whole chapter, and because I think this slide will help express it, right? But especially Our Lady of Health in Villanova, right, where most of the people that come there are Hindu. For Muslims, it's pretty easy to understand why they have venerate Mary, right? She has her own surah in the Quran, right? For Hindus and Buddhists, though, yes, they adopt her as their own, and because of the many similarities and shared characteristics between Mary, as we understand her, and then how they understand her as a goddess and a female goddess, right? What's most interesting, I think, about Our Lady of Health in Villanova is that less than a quarter mile up the road, right, a 10-minute walk, is the Hindu temple for the Hindu goddess, Mother or Maria, right? She looks very much like a Hindu goddess. She doesn't look like Mary, but she's posed the same way. She has the same attributes. She is the goddess of healing, fertility, intercession, and protection. And that's how they also understand when the Hindus come here. They just understand her as another version of that. Same thing with many of the Tibetan Buddhists in Nepal or other parts of northern India, equating Mary with the mother goddess. And the images of the Tibetan mother goddess looks very much like this without the crown, right? Woman holding the baby. I think Sister Naka is going to talk more about that in the next presentation. But yes, absolutely, that's a big part of it.
Sure. Great presentation. Loved it. Does this work both ways? In what I mean by that is, are there Christians who, granted, are a religious minority in these places? Are there Christians that are going to Hindu shrines or Muslim holy sites or Buddhist holy sites for some of the same purposes? You know, I'm just thinking of the humility needed for the Buddhist monks to go into these shrines and learn. I'm learning from their humility, and I would, be curious about that two-way street there.
Yeah, so I don't know that they're going to the mosque to pray on Friday, but they are joining in the I know in Pakistan with the Ashura pilgrimages in southern Pakistan, many Catholics join those pilgrimages. I know, I mentioned the Hindu temple that's right up the road, 10-minute walk. As I walked there to go see it, as I walked in, there were two women leaving, both holding rosaries, and they asked me, and when you look at them, it's two Indian women, right? You don't know if they're Catholic, Hindu, whatever. They asked me if I was a priest. Now, I was the only guy there that looked like this, right? So I said, no, I'm not a priest. I'm just, coming to see the temple. And they said, oh, good. And I said, why? And they said, well, we're Catholic. So I said, well, why did you come here? Oh, just to pay our respects to the other Mother Mary.
Yeah.
But what happens is these at all three of these shrines it happens in other parts of South Asia. Yeah, the Catholic Church very much is engaged in celebrating the Hindu festivals and the Buddhist festivals in northern, right? My wife is from Nepal, so I'm very intimately familiar with how the Catholic Church in Nepal interacts with the Hindu community there. And almost every single one of the Hindu festivals, the Catholic Church celebrates it in the Catholic Church grounds. So there, yes, very, very much it goes both ways.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for that example. Of course, it ties in with my question. I was wondering, of all the people, the pilgrims who go to these shrines, my tendency is to think that most of them are women rather than men. I don't know what you think about it.
Vast majority.
So
It's
what
very
could be going on there?
Sorry.
So what could be going on there if only mostly women are going to this pilgrimage?
There's still men, right? So, but the majority are women. I think part of that, there's probably a lot of reasons for it. One, if you go to Mass here on any Sunday, most of the people at Mass are women too.
Thank you.
It's not unique to you, right? It's not unique to Marian Shrine. But I think one thing I found too is that there is a unique aspect of Mary that draws women in, right? Especially, I'm not an expert on Africa. I'm not an expert on other parts of the world, right? I've studied the South Asia aspects very closely, and the societal emphasis on fertility and having children, the societal emphasis on women being responsible for the family, not in an economic way, but in a social way within the family structure. Women can turn to Mary as that motherly example, as that grieving mother. You know, for women in Kashmir, I don't think I have that picture, but one of the most popular images is the, and every single one of these shrines has it, is the Pieta, right, with Mary holding Jesus on her lap. And for women in Kashmir who have lost their children, or women in Sri Lanka, mothers, daughters, wives, whatever, just because of the consistent conflict, that image is so relatable to a woman who's lost her son in war, or a woman who's lost her husband. So I think that there's certainly certain aspects of Mary that attract women and make her a little more relatable than other shrines or other Christian symbols.
We have a minute and a half, so can I ask my own question?
Certainly, sir.
So I met a Hindu who told me that when the missionaries came to preach Christianity to them, and he asked them, "Who is Jesus Christ?" And they said, "It's God." And he said, "Oh, if it's God, I have no problem accepting it because we have 10 million gods, right? Yeah. So I can add one more."
Yeah.
Isn't that the same thing going on here? Like, accepting it, but there's no content. It's just like, oh, it's another feminine deity, you know? Is that the kind of thing going on?
There's certainly an aspect of that. And I think I have two responses to that. One, from a peace-building perspective. So there's certainly theological differences in understanding. But there's theological differences in understanding between Catholics and Muslims, too. Right? We both recognize her as Mary, the mother of Jesus, but our understanding of Jesus is different, right? Which then affects her nature of being his mother. So there's a theological difference there. So yes, certainly, they're just adopting her as another goddess, right? Just one more among many. No matter how powerful they understand her to be, there is theological differences. But that doesn't stop Mary being a great opportunity for interreligious dialogue between Catholics and Muslims. I don't think it stops Mary as being a great topic of interreligious dialogue between Hindus and Catholics either. From a peace-building perspective, as a peace builder, I don't really care about the theological differences. What draws me in is it's a shared object of veneration. It's something that brings us all together.
Very good. Thank you very much.